we're talking about von Economo neurons, aka spindle cells. Apparently they are responsible for the presence of complex consciousness, all right? The more von Economo neurons you have, the more spindle cells, same thing you have, the more conscious you are. That's what we're going to talk about today. More research needed. Let's continue. We're going to take a look at which animals have how many of these and which behaviors do these animals. Humans are around 83,000. And the primates are separated. 2,000 for bonobos and chimpanzees, and 16,000 for gorillas. So then you have elephants, and they have 10,000. Okay, and then cetaceans, I am going to leave a mystery for now. Basically, those are the animals that have the most vens. Let's bring this bird back out. So if vens are responsible for complex consciousness, what is that? What is that? If you watch this program, you may contract herpes. So let's say von Economo neurons promote complex. When it says they promote complex consciousness, there's several kinds of consciousness, basically. All animals, perhaps even the sun, rocks, whatever. Who's to say what is conscious? Essentially, we're just pointing out the difference between us and dogs and the similarities. Obviously there's something going on here where we're a little bit different than dogs and cats who have no von Economo neurons. Most of the animal kingdom has none. So the behaviors we're going to be talking about as we go on include the following. Save that one. Put that one up here. Clothes. So this is one that dogs and cats do not have. They don't wear clothes unless you're in a place where they dress their dogs in clothes. So we're going to put an asterisk next to that one and say that, like, dogs and cats, clothes, no, we do not do clothes unless dressed, is the asterisk, by others. Here's the theory, is that once you get some talking going on, you get a little morphage. This is 0 von Economo neurons. These guys, the environment is a signal and they are a receiver. They have no communication between the hemispheres of their brain, so it acts as one. That's kind of like what we're going with. It is a singular mind because there's no communication back and forth. And that is called as it's like a two-factored experience. You're directly involved with the environment. And that is what you basically have is the definition of the phenomena of experiencing life. You need to have the environment, the signal, and you need to have a receiver, which is an organism. This is signal receiver style. This is 0 von Economo neurons. So you start to have this communication. And this is gorillas and then people. All right, so let's take people. We're at 83,000. We have a lot of communication between the hemispheres. Okay? But now you have a signal receiver relationship within the mind itself, the brain. There's already a signal receiver happening. The phenomena of life is best described as if you're driving down the highway and you stick your hand out the window and you feel the wind on your hand. In that scenario, your hand is the receiver. It's feeling the wind. Before, when you're in the car, that's lifelessness. And then when you have a receiver, basically the hand sticking out of the window experiencing life. And that sensation is life, aka red circle. Okay, so with the advanced von Economo neurons, let's just say people and others. It doesn't necessarily have to be people, because this is the tricky part. it's a sliding scale. You know, we've already noticed that this is our experience as humans with a pretty developed communication between the hemispheres. We are self-harmonizing or self-resonant, but you also have to have the environment. You're watching some pigeons. That's the environment. Perfect. So now, not only do you have a signal receiver happening inside, which is the communication between the hemispheres, now you also have that resonating with the environment. That's how you get the telescopic effect. These two actually, their existence in the same space, their forced recognition of each other creates this third dimensional time-bound experience where suddenly we're popped out of that, you know, Garden of Eden. I'm going to stop using that analogy, but you know, the paradise of that the animals live in. We're popped out of that, if indeed it is a paradise. You know, it might not be the Garden of Eden down there. We don't really know, but it's a good analogy in this case. So that one is actually, you know, that's kind of like more how our three-dimensional experience could be visualized. Let's give this the official seal of quality. We have one more note we want to add. Is this it? Receiver signal signals. Receiver signal signals. Receiver signal signals. Receiver signal signals. Okay, we are back, and what we are looking at is only, out of all these things, only people wear clothes. Recreational drugs. Medicine. Could also be called medicine. Jaguars, which we're going to go ahead and say cats, are known to do ayahuasca. So let's just go ahead and say that you don't need any von economos to do drugs or medicine. Crazy thought. Crazy thought. All right, emotional. I put this one here because I want to emphasize that in our theory, everything is emotional. Here's where the von economos start to come in. So now there's some, by the fact of there being talking between the two, is actually kind of like a severing. It's weird. Gets starting to happen here is the beginnings of a red circle. It's self-harmonizing. Laughing and crying, that's down here in the chimp level, right? These aren't like totally mirror recognition. You think that dogs know that it's themselves in the mirror? I don't know. It's not at zero level, but it's definitely down low. Chimps would recognize themselves in the mirror, right? Sex for fun. We're going to put that down with the chimps. We know that bonobos do sex for fun. Oh, and one thing that I forgot to mention is that we're going to assume that everything that has a higher amount of von economos, like people have 83,000, gorillas have 16,000. They're the next one down that was mentioned for the number. Elephants 10, chimps 2. Tools, are we going to put tools in the chimp range? This is what we got. And I'm going to, once again, I want to mention these are on like a sliding scale. Language and singing are kind of like, they're afloat because the complexity changes with the animal. Who's got the past and future? I'm going to say that this one is not present at the bottom level. Muscle memory, yes, but actually thinking about the past and future, I really think it's probably up here with clothes. Maybe it's more like a sliding scale one, the more that you, I don't know, past and future, but my theory hinges on the fact that it's definitely above the zero level. These guys, dogs, cats, and others, live in a completely present existence where everything's a paradise because we're going to switch topics for a minute because that is like the main thing is, and I think it pretty much comes from building shelter. Okay, and that's at 0. How much of this is basically, we could get away with being chimp. You know, would we all be satisfied with 2,000? Just check out how little is actually high level thinking. Clothes and painting. So you could kind of If we just got rid of artwork and clothes, we might revert back to some kind of amazing animal state. However, now this is the one that's going to really blow you away. We're finally getting to the cetaceans, dolphins and stuff. The most amazing thing about these guys is how many von Economo neurons they have. 3 times the amount that people have. Check that out. So that means that if it's true that all of these lower behaviors are inherited upwards, that means that cetaceans can do all this, or they would be able to. Whales would be able to do all this if they had the opposable digits. They probably do it for fun. I mean, we know they sing. We call it singing, but I bet they actually sing like we do. Definitely doing drugs. We already talked about dolphins will eat this blowfish that gets them. This is sort of like the takeaway of the day, I would say, is that at 83,000, you wear clothes. That's people. So if people have 83,000 and we wear clothes, that means that somewhere in between 83,000 and 259,000 von Economo neurons, you're going to take your clothes off again. Dolphins don't wear clothes, not because they live in the water. It's because they're too freaking aware. They're in the world so much that the idea of clothes is laughable. And perhaps one day, if people gravitate closer to this number of von Economo neurons, we can too ditch our clothes in the dust and go back to the naked times.